So the perfect segue for me was the last comments of Mark in terms of culture trumping strategy. Last week, I decided to do the simplest of simple things. I typed into Google, and you're welcome to do this on your own iPads right now if you wish. I typed into Google the question, how old is a millennial? Just for starters. So when I did that, the pages of Google comes up with 18 or 20 immediate listings of things. And of the 18 cited references and articles, when I asked that question, I read each of those articles, and I found 12 different age groups assigned to the term millennials. So let's play this game ourselves here in-house for a second. You all have these pieces of note paper in front of you. I'd like you to write down how old you think a baby boomer is in large letters, because I'm going to ask you to show it to your friends and neighbors. Just 10 seconds. What's the youngest baby boomer? What's the oldest baby boomer? How old are they? Because after all, the scientist in me and the engineer in you, it would help if we could at least define the sample. Okay, do you all have something written down? So, would you show to the people next to you and the people behind you or in front of you, just hold up, how old are baby boomers? The youngest baby boomer is how old, and the oldest is how old? Okay? All right. Just out of curiosity, would you hold up your hand if in your immediate surrounding area, say the 3 to 6 people around you, if you had identical numbers to the people who you showed it to? How many of you had identical numbers? This threesome right here had the same youngest and oldest age groupings. Okay. Would you 3 stand up? Take a look at who these are. Okay? This is quite interesting because you will see these 3 again momentarily. They have been doing their homework, so to speak. However, there are nearly 200 of us in this room, so 197 of us did not have a consensus. How many of you in your groups of 3s, 4s, 5s that you showed it to had absolutely no, not even a close fit? That you're way, way off the mark? Okay? How many of you were sort of within 10 years of sharing what happened? Okay, that's the most common. That's the most common age range, and the differences are very explicit that way. Now, you've got the term millennials. You got the term baby boomers. You've got the greatest generation. You have all of those. And then you have Generation Y and Generation X. September 25th, I just, 3 weeks ago, I went to the Huffington Post, and I just looked for an article on anything having to do with generations, and I came to this one titled Why Generation Y Yuppies Are Unhappy. The text of it doesn't matter, but they began the article by saying that a Generation Y person was anybody born between the years 1970 and 1995. 25-year age span. And then they purported to describe these phenomenon of how different this group was from any other. But in point of fact, if you start to look for data, that's part of my appeals today to you, is to start to look for data, you'll see that it almost covers what, from the research that I've been involved with, is ostensibly 3 different generational groups in terms of the core values held by these groups. So if we are going to move to being data-driven, we have to make some progress. I have done this same test, if you will, with a number of groups over the years, and we did specifically pull a sample of 750 executives asking how old are baby boomers. And so your show of hands earlier is another confirmation of the same thing. Only 11% of the people, and these are senior executives, could actually agree on anything close to, even within a 10-year range of what constituted the age of a baby boomer. Adding insult to injury in some sense, if you just review the literature in academia and in scholarly circles about the various generations, the range is much more striking than I would have thought it would have been. Only 17% even agreed on the age of what constitutes a baby boomer. So, the last thing I will say is that this terminology that we use all the time, and in fact makes basic decisions on, and organizations decide on the incentive packages and on insurance and compensation, most of these terms were created by either authors on the speaker circuit, the media, or by advertising agencies who want to lay claim to coining that phrase, and a certain amount of expertise in cottage industries grow from that. So if you can't even define the sample, how can you purport to explain future behavior? And so I always encourage you to look for avenues for data. And fortunately, in this period of time, technology has allowed for a number of mechanisms where you can actually track and gather data longitudinally. This is just one quick example. Google Ngram Viewer, if you're not familiar with it, very useful tool. You can type in a phrase. It basically searches a phrase, and you can put in time parameters. So I was interested in the idea of that we were seeing in our research is very different perspectives on different age groups about careers. What's on the decline, meaning in an aging population, the term that they were looking for, a secure career, has been declining ever since 1985. On the other hand, if you look at younger populations, and you put in the term a fulfilling career, which is very different than a secure career, has been rising steadily in roughly the same proportions since 1985 to the present. In our research, therefore, we've come up with core values held by different age groups as being the differentiator. If you look at the top row, we've got 6 different, we call them value populations, compared to the 4 dominant ones. And we feel that if you look at data points, a variety of data points, that you will see the differences. This is the terminology we use. Instead of saying millennials, we have our own terminology. It's not so important that you know or notice them. It's more, I think, more important and more to the point that you just understand that there are a variety of ways of looking at what makes people tick and makes one generation different than another.